Now, to celebrate Deaf Awareness Month, we're joined in studio this morning by MC and poet Ntombi Sikhuza, whose remarkable journey from hearing to deafness has transformed her into a passionate advocate and educator. As a former member of the National Language Board, Ntombi's commitment to language accessibility and inclusivity is evident in her work. Now, today, she'll share her inspiring story and insights into her initiatives, highlighting the importance of creating a more inclusive society. Ntombi, what a pleasure to have you in studio, and thank you so much. And thank you also to Sinovoyo, who's going to be doing the sign language and translating for us this morning.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolute pleasure, an absolute pleasure. Your journey, it's a very powerful one. It certainly is. I suppose, as soon as you came into this world, the gift of hearing was not part of your journey. But perhaps talk to us about what it's been like for you.
My experience, it was good and bad. There were so many challenges. At first, having to go to school, and I think I failed at about 7 times because the education system was not accessible enough for me to ensure that I can be able to succeed. I think, the biggest problem is that I didn't know that I was profoundly deaf because I am hearing, right? So I felt like I am a normal person because I am hearing, and I thought it's normal for me to fail. And then when I moved to Gauteng, when I then went to school, and then there's one teacher who had identified that Ntombi is actually deaf and she's not hearing, because I went to a hearing school, to a mainstream school. And that is when the first challenge that I experienced, being in a mainstream school and failing, and then when I then transitioned into a special school, that's when I actually soared through, because I learned sign language. I understood who I am, I could communicate, I could express myself. Even though it was very difficult to accept that I am a deaf person, and then later on in life, I had to accept that I am a deaf person and actually accept my identity as a deaf person.
So help me understand, firstly, where did you grow up?
I was born in PE, in the Eastern Cape. And then I moved, I think at age 4, I then moved with my mother to Gauteng because she was not feeling well. And then we came to Gauteng to get some, health or doctors to be able to help her.
Okay.
So when we arrived to Gauteng, my mother still was not aware that I am actually deaf. Right, and neither did I know that I am deaf myself.
And that's what I want to ask, because I want to know what you mean by that. So when you said I could hear when I was younger, or you thought you could hear, but what exactly does that mean? Because I suppose me as a hearing person, I don't understand that.
So hard of hearing, it means that, right, I was born deaf. However, I was born hard of hearing. Does it mean that I was able to speak properly? Not really, right? So I can be able to hear a little bit of sound, right? However, it's not sound that I can identify as a hearing person. Hence, I am identified as a hard of hearing. There's a little bit of sound that I can hear. There's a little bit of enunciation that also comes from my mouth, right? So the biggest challenge is that at the age of 29, right, and then I went to the doctor because I could sense and that there's a problem with my hearing. And then the doctor then confirmed and diagnosed that my hearing will actually completely be lost, right? Before, I could actually talk on the phone, I could communicate with family, I could hear a bit of sounds. But later on, when I actually grew up, I finally lost my hearing completely.
Okay. All right. So now it's completely gone, which is a very different world to live in. And I think what's fascinating is that you're a poet and you describe your voice as poetry. I would love to know that your identity and who you are. How has a poet defined you?
You know, poetry, I'm thinking back in Pretoria, right? And that's when I actually realized that I really do love poetry. It tells a story about my life, my challenges, the difficulties that I had experienced. So poetry is a way of expressing myself. And it's the same for my deaf peers. You know, we tell stories through poetry, you know, the darknesses, you know, it's the darknesses of life. I think that's actually the title of the poetry that I'm actually going to perform today.
I look forward to seeing this performance and hearing the words in it. One of the interesting things about you as well is that you're a member of the National Language Board, and you've also been a champion of accessibility. As a country, where are our biggest downfalls? A lot. I gather a lot.
You know, as an advocate, you know, we're still advocating for accessibility. We'll definitely say there has been highlights, there has been improvements, there has been accessibility here and there. There's also challenges along the way. You know, I could say the most challenge would be in the health sector, at hospitals, and also in the SAP.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest challenge, where there is a lack of accessibility. I think in other sectors or in other departments, there has been some improvement in terms of accessibility, but there's no jobs in the health sector, in the health department for deaf people. There's no accessibility for deaf people in the SAP and also in the health sector. So I think those are the biggest you know, challenges within those two sectors.
Yeah, and this is something we've been talking about for a very long time, and it's very hard to talk about inclusivity when this is a very big sector of the population that is being left out, and that's the reality. So I just want to hear from you, the future of inclusivity. For you, what does it look like?
Inclusivity, you know, I think it's a very important dynamic. The most important one is learning sign language. You know, that defines inclusivity for me. Imagine when you go to the hospital and you're pregnant and you actually need to get medical care and you are almost at the verge of giving birth. And then you get there, they're not able to assist you. Kids who have experienced rape, who have experienced sexual violence, who actually go to the police station and want to report on cases. However, they're not able to because sign language is not an accessible language for them to be able to communicate. Yeah. So I think learning sign language is the biggest inclusivity
for people. And I mean, it is. It's like living in a foreign land where nobody can understand you. You need something and yet you can't communicate. And that's the one thing we'd like to see overcome. Just as we start to wrap up, being an MC and a poet and performing, what is that like for you? Standing on the stage, speaking to people or signing to people, and the impact that has. Give me a glimpse into your world.
I feel very proud. You know, there's goosebumps, you know, being on stage and having people watching me. I remember at a time when I was at the State Theatre in Pretoria, and there was a room full of people, and the feeling I felt was being proud of myself, you know, for being in such platforms.
When was the first time you performed in front of an audience, or the moment you realized I can make a profession out of this, being a poet and performing and getting a message across at the same time?
My first experience was in the State Theatre. I think that was my biggest stage. That was for a disability and blind inclusivity event. And I was the only deaf person who was actually performing. At first, there were challenges because I wasn't very aware of the stage, but you know, when I performed, I could see the emotions in people. You know, people were very emotional and it touched their hearts. And I think that's what actually brings me joy, is that when I perform, it actually does something to the next person.
Yeah, I'm loving this, and I cannot wait to see you perform, because I know that you're going to be performing for us at the end of the show. Perhaps just as we wrap up, tell us about this performance that you're going to do for us.
So I'll be performing about a poem titled Darkness. It's basically about my life experiences, the different challenges that I've experienced. So it will be translated in Zulu, so because that's my home language, and I really love Zulu. It's the biggest identity for me as a language, and I need people in the rural areas to actually feel included, you know, to understand the performance in their own language. For people who have never went to school, for them to actually experience the performance that I'll be giving to them. So it will be in my home language, well, in my second language, Zulu.
Amazing, thank you. This is going to be absolutely beautiful. Ntombi Sikhuza, she's here in studio, an MC and poet, and she is going to play us out this morning, right here on Morning Live. Don't go anywhere.